2016 Republican presidential frontrunner Donald Trump, his wife Melania. You met with Reince Priebus. How did that meeting go? Can you tell us what you talked about?
Well, the meeting was fine. We had a short meeting, probably half an hour, and he was there with his staff, and he's a really nice guy. I've always gotten along, but I just said I want to be treated fairly. I mean, I'm getting far more votes than anybody. In Louisiana, I won the state, and I find out I have less delegates than a guy that I beat quite easily. And it's unfair. You say, what's going on? Now, in all fairness, we're way ahead in delegates, but why would somebody that loses have more delegates? They say, well, there's this way and this. And I say, wait a minute, I don't care about ways. I won the state. I'm not supposed to have less delegates than a guy I beat. It doesn't work that way.
Let me ask this question. John Boehner said he hopes that they would pick Paul Ryan. They can nominate anybody at a contested convention. John Kasich's whole strategy now, he says it'll be a great educational opportunity. He can't get to 1237. The only way he can win is to leapfrog over you and Ted Cruz. Scott Walker, in a private meeting with a friend of ours, said last week he wants Paul Ryan. We know that Mitt Romney's strategy, Paul Rove has said it. There's a local radio guy who's not on my station, Charlie Sykes, has said he wants to jump over the winner. So my question to you...
Stop with the names, we'll go over. Okay. First of all, Romney lost so badly. It was one of the great defeats in the history of presidential politics. And for this guy to be talking, and he knows how I felt, and I said, hey, look, he's a choke artist. He choked with President Obama, and that's not presidential to say, but I'll say it anyway. I have to say it. I always say, I want to say it until I win, then I promise I'll get presidential, okay? I drive it crazy. But Romney is nothing but a choke artist, and I don't want his endorsement. You know, if I win this, I don't need his endorsement.
But the strategy is to take this from the people that won the most votes, the most states, and got the most delegates.
And millions of people that are out there voting, and I have people, it's the biggest story in politics today. The Republican Party, I hate to say, because it's, you know, whatever, because I'm running, because they want to see America be great again, et cetera, all the things we're going to do. The Republican Party is getting millions of votes more than it did 4 years ago. Now, it's getting millions of votes more than it ever had. And in all fairness, the Republican Party never had that image. It was like sort of tired, exhausted, tired. And now all of a sudden you go to South Carolina, you go to New Hampshire, you go to different Nevada, and a woman working in Nevada said, you know what, and she said this on television, I'm watching television, she said, I've been in here for 25 years. They'd have like 3 people in this room. Now they had a line that was going back 6 blocks, 5 deep, and she said, I've never seen anything like this. And that's every single thing. So
we had
the Republicans
more people than we had room for here.
Well, look at you. I mean, you were supposed to have just a little audience, and now they have to open up all the decks.
Right.
There's something amazing happening.
So let me ask this question.
There's something
if let's say you fall shy at 1237, and this is not a Chris Matthews hypothetical, but if you fall shy of 1237 and you get to the convention and it becomes contested and they try, you have more votes, more delegates, won more states than anybody else, and they try to take that nomination away from you, what is your answer?
Well, let me tell you what's unfair. I was always very good. We won't let them, right? Let me tell you, I was always very good. Thank you. Wow, that's very nice.
I have a question for the audience. If they tried to do what I'm describing, how many of you would want him to walk out? How many of you would not vote for whoever they picked? So they've got a big problem.
Well, we have millions. Thank you. We have millions of people. We're not talking about small. You know, like as an example, above Cruz. And in all fairness to Cruz, at least he's going through this process, and it's not an easy process. But over Ted Cruz, I have millions of additional votes. Not only delegates, but millions of additional votes. I think it's really hard to do it, but I was always very good with mathematics, okay? So here's the problem we have, and that anybody in my position would have. I won, as you saw, many states. I think I have, what, 22, 23 states. We won a lot of states, all right? More, by far, 32, much more than anybody else. Okay, so, but the problem is those first states, we had 17 people running. So you could win a state, you get 24, 25%, you'd win a state. But with all of those people, you had governors, you had people of great achievement. I mean, you have Ben Carson, who's a fantastic guy, but great achievement. The endorsement, Ben endorsement. And you had Chris Christie who endorsed me. But you had people of great achievement. You had governors, senators, etc. Okay? and they all had 2%, 3%, 5%. We had 17 people. So it's impossible to get to that threshold in those early states. Even now, we still have Kasich. Now, here's the problem with Kasich. First of all, I happen to think he takes votes away from me more so than Cruz. But Sean, he's won for 31.
Yeah.
Okay? Not good.
Actually,
he's won.
If you add on the contest,
fair.
it's more than 31. But yeah.
No, I think it's more. It's probably 33 if you add on the islands and everything else. But he's won for 31, probably 33. And if I spent 2 days more in Ohio, I would have won that too. We did great in Ohio. I would have won Ohio. And you know why I didn't do it? Because I wanted to be sure that I won Florida. We won Florida big. But I would have won Ohio. But the point is this. So we have all these people. And it's very hard, therefore, to get the 50% plus one when you go. Despite that, I think we're going to do it. I'll tell you what. If we can win Wisconsin, and we are doing great, we're going to do it pretty easily.
I read a recent interview, and a couple of times you used an analogy that, well, in a primary, I got to be tough. I got to break some eggs, and then I'm going to be what Melania is asking you, and Ivanka's asking you, and Eric and Don Jr. are asking you to be more presidential.
Very boring. I'll be very boring.
What does that mean? You're going to? How is that possible?
No, he'll be so he'll have Trump on, and he'll say, that was the most boring interview I've ever done. No more Trump. Now, I understand. You know what Melania says? What, Ivanka the same?
You agree with her?
I do, but I want to finish the job. You know, look. I do. You know, in the last debate, and Drudge, who's an amazing guy, by the way, but Drudge has a poll, right? He really is. People don't know what an amazing guy, but Drudge has a poll, and Time Magazine, and all these, you know, there's like 7 or 8 of them, online polls after the debates. I've won every single poll of every single debate. In other words, who won the debates? You know that. Now, so they told me on the final debate, be presidential, don't hit back, don't... And I tried it, and I succeeded. I was so proud of myself. But
you know what the real
it was also, by the way, I did good in the poll, but it was also the most boring debate of all, you have to say.